I mentioned in my last video that I wanted to start putting out more regular content in between my more ambitious videos. So now that I am wrapping up the next episode of Departure, I'm beginning to churn out videos as a part of my new posting schedule. So tonight's video is the first episode of Time Travel Tuesday. Imagine instead of that ridiculousness, some kind of cool graphic. I definitely like to have a special intro for this series. If you guys have any suggestions, please send them my way. So, Time Travel Tuesdays. Time Travel Tuesdays is a weekly video in which I combine the tingles of ASMR with the warm fuzzies of nostalgia. And here's what I mean by that. I think that the sensation of ASMR and the feeling of nostalgia, while not the same thing, kind of exist in the same neighborhood, so to speak. So because of that, I think that they would make a really cool combination. So my goal here is to integrate that into a weekly video. So each week I will sort of present a new piece of nostalgia woven into an ASMR format. So examples of that could be old video games that you love, movies that you used to watch late at night as a kid, music, that kind of thing. Now, the way I'm going to decide which piece of nostalgia to discuss every week is with your help. What I want you guys to do is, at the end of this video, in the comment section, tell me what thing from your past, movie, video game, anything, that you would like me to talk about. And what I'll do when it's time for me to sit down and play in the next video is I will read each and every comment. I'll read every single comment and tally up which suggestion is mentioned the most, and that'll be my next topic. So that's how that's gonna work. Now, I won't always have a physical, visual representation of what I'm discussing, but I will do my best to have something. And also, if it's something that I'm not familiar with, if it's something I just haven't heard of or I don't know much about, this is a really cool opportunity for me to learn something new, and maybe for you guys to learn something new also. So, because this is the first episode of Time Travel Tuesdays, obviously there were no votes, so I let my boyfriend Josh decide what I would discuss this evening. And that is the movie Gremlins. This is not a piece of artwork by me because I'm not that fantastic. This is an Etsy purchase. This is a hand-painted representation of Gizmo the Mogwai from the movie Gremlins. So, I'm going to tell you everything that I know about this movie. Well, giving you a little visual ASMR too. Cool, so let us begin. Okay. The movie Gremlins is a 1984 horror comedy that was released by Warner Brothers. And it was directed by a man named Joe Dante. I'll give you a quick sort of synopsis of the film. Now this is Gremlins 1. There are 2 Gremlins. Gremlins is about a young man who is given an adorable little creature called a mogwai. That's this guy right here. Who is precious and lovely and very good-natured and adorable. However, mogwai is a unique creature because it has to be cared for with some very specific guidelines. So, in the film, this young man comes to have Gizmo the mogwai as a pet and doesn't take enough care to follow those instructions. So Gizmo multiplies, and then his offspring creatures become horrible, nasty, evil, reptilian creatures called gremlins that terrorize the young man's town. So, the main cast, I won't list the whole cast of the film. Main cast, we've got Zach Galligan, who plays Billy, the young man, and the main character. And then the beautiful Phoebe Cates as Kate, Billy's love interest. And then there's lots and lots of other people. But this little guy is voiced by Howie Mandel, who many of you know from the popular game show Deal or No Deal. Cool. So, I'm going to share some facts that I find really interesting about the movie. Steven Spielberg, who is the executive producer of the film, actually considered a young director by the name of Tim Burton to direct the film. But he ended up going with Joe Dante because Joe Dante had more experience in the comedy horror genre. And because Mr. Burton at this time had not yet directed a full film. Now, the original script of the movie, if you have seen the movie, you might be interested to know that the original script went through a lot of changes before it was released. There are a lot of darker elements to the film that Spielberg and the other studio executives kind of vetoed because they were too dark. For instance, Billy's mother, who I think is one of the coolest characters in the movie. She's kind of a badass. In the original script, she was killed by the Gremlins. And when Billy came back to his house to rescue her from them, they threw her head down the stairs at him. That's something, huh? Also, his beloved dog, Barney, was eaten by the Gremlins in the original script. And, the leader of the Gremlins, Stripe. Originally in the script, there wasn't a separate character for Stripe. In the original script, Gizmo, the Mogwai, became Stripe the Gremlin. But Steven Spielberg vetoed that plot element as well because, being the brilliant man that he is, he knew that Gizmo's cuteness would endear him to the audiences, and they would want to see him throughout the film. And he was right. I would not have enjoyed this movie half as much if little Gizmo hadn't been present throughout. The only way I would have been okay with that is if Gizmo was eventually turned back into a Mogwai and not killed as a gremlin. I would never have been okay with that. Also, there is a very famous monologue in the Gremlins movie that is performed by Phoebe Cates, who is Kate, Billy's love interest. And it's a sort of reference to a well-known urban legend, Christmas urban legend, in which a family is getting ready to celebrate Christmas and the father goes away on a business trip and then comes home early to surprise them, and he dresses up as Santa Claus and gets up on the roof and comes down the chimney as a Christmas surprise, but he slips and breaks his neck and becomes stuck in the chimney, and his family, his wife and kids, search for him and only find him when they go to light their Christmas fire. That's real nice, right? Anyway, Kate in the movie describes that exact horrific scene as how she lost her father at Christmas time, and subsequently how she learned that there wasn't any Santa Claus. Now that scene got a lot of criticism and was really sort of controversial with the studio execs. They didn't want it in the movie. They thought it was too dark, in poor taste. Steven Spielberg didn't like it either. But Joe Dante, the director, fought really, really hard to keep it in, and so Spielberg let him. And it's probably one of the most popular scenes from the movie. So, let's see. Some of the special effects are interesting. So most of the Gremlins and Gizmo, the Mogwai, are puppets. They had to make more than one puppet for Gizmo. So a lot of times in a given scene, Billy would be holding Gizmo, and then he would set him down. And then the next time we see Gizmo, it's a completely different puppet that was maybe wired to his desk. And anytime there was a close-up of Gizmo, making face, showing expression, that was also a different puppet, a much larger version. And so when the Mogwai reproduce, well, I didn't tell you the 3 rules. I forgot to tell you the 3 rules. You probably know them. I'll backtrack. Rule number 1. You have to keep the Mogwai away from bright lights, especially sunlight, because sunlight will kill them. You cannot get them wet, cannot feed them after midnight. More on that later. So, when Gizmo gets wet, he multiplies. And little furry balls pop out of his back and go all over the room. And those become new Mogwai. So, what they used for the new little Mogwai furry balls were actually balloons that became inflated. Now there's also a scene where one of the gremlins explodes in the microwave. And that was also a balloon that was put in the microwave and allowed to explode, to burst in the microwave. I thought that was pretty neat. So, interestingly, when this movie was released, the Motion Picture Association of America had not yet created the PG-13 rating. This movie was kind of highly criticized by a lot of parents, families, who thought that they were taking their kids to see a nice family-friendly movie and were shocked by what they saw. The same thing occurred around the same time with Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. So, Gremlins and Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom are sort of known as the two films that influenced the MPAA's creation of the PG-13 rating. Which you may not have known. I didn't know that. Another interesting factoid about Gremlins is that a magazine called Complex Magazine labeled it one of the 50 most racist films of all time. Of all time. There was someone, I don't know if she was a journalist or a critic or just a writer of some kind. I think her name is Patricia Turner, I think. She claimed that the Gremlins were meant to be African American and that they reflected negative African American behaviors. And apparently a bunch of people agreed with her. There are several interesting cameos in the film. One by Steven Spielberg himself. There's a scene in which Billy's dad is at a convention for inventors, because he's an inventor. And while he's on the phone, a man drives past him in a sort of go-kart looking thing. And that man is Steven Spielberg himself. If you have the movie and you fast forward to that scene, you'll catch him. He's piddling by. There's also a cameo by Chuck Jones, who is one of the directors of the famous Looney Tunes. I believe he appears as just a friend of Billy's. He talks about Billy's drawings with him. Gremlins was big influence on a lot of films that came out around that time that were super similar in plot and themes. There was Critters, Troll, Ghoulies, and one called Munchies, which I've never seen, but I read the synopsis and it's basically the same movie. It's almost exactly the same plot. And probably nowhere near as good. So, there was a sequel to Gremlins. It's called Gremlins 2, The New Batch. It came out in 1990, several years later. It was also directed by Joe Dante. And it has a lot of the same major cast members. Zach Galligan again, Phoebe Cates again, and Howie Mandel as the voice of Gizmo again. Just a quick synopsis. Gizmo sort of falls into the wrong hands and becomes a guinea pig of sorts for a group of scientists in New York City at the company, major corporation where Billy and Kate, who are now engaged, are employed. Billy and Gizmo are reunited. Gizmo gets wet, of course, because obviously no one knows how to take care of a mogwai still. And a new batch of gremlins is created. So what happens this time, though, is that these gremlins, because they're in a lab, have access to all these different kinds of weird serums, and so they drink some of them and become even more freakishly genetically altered. One of them drinks a brain serum and becomes very intelligent, which is awfully dangerous. Another drinks a bat serum and becomes a bat. And then one even becomes a lady gremlin. Joe Dante, the director, actually makes a cameo in this one. And what does he play? He is, I think, the director of a TV show that they're shooting somewhere in the building. So there are all these just freakish gremlins loose in this giant skyscraper building in New York City, and of course it's up to Billy and Kate and some other people along the way to try and stop the creepy little monsters from taking over New York City. One of my favorite things about Gremlins 2 is that, well, I, along with other fans of the film, always had the question. So, gremlins aren't supposed to eat after midnight, but that really poses a new question. Lots of questions, actually. There's lots of times after midnight, you know? So when can they eat? Is it sunrise? And also, what if it's midnight here, but it's not midnight somewhere else? Or what if the gremlin crosses time zones for some reason while he's eating? Or not the gremlin, the mogwai. So what I like about Gremlins 2 is that there's a scene in the film where there are people sort of teasing Billy about all these rules before they know that gremlins exist. They're teasing him and asking him all these questions and saying, well, what if he has a little bit of food stuck in his teeth from when he ate, and then he accidentally swallows it at midnight? He didn't eat at midnight, or he didn't eat after midnight. Then what? So, it's funny that the filmmakers are just basically poking fun at themselves. The entire Gremlins 2 movie is just basically a giant parody of Gremlins 1. And I like how sort of tongue-in-cheek and self-aware they are. It's definitely a lot lighter than the first film. It's meant to be more cartoony. You can get a good look at Gizmo. If I had a pet mogwai, oh my god, I would never leave my house. I would just sit and play with him all day long. So cute. Okay. I hope you've enjoyed episode 1 of Time Travel Tuesday. And I hope you've learned some interesting facts about gremlins. So, don't forget to comment below what you would like me to tell you about in next week's episode of Time Travel Tuesday. And I'll tally up all the votes, and that will be my topic. Okay. I'll be seeing you guys soon. So until next time.